Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to have some Division 20 ranked online gameplay in the lightweight division using Charles Oliveira. And as you can see from the screen now, I'm currently ranked 90th in the top 100 with 99 wins out of 128 fights, which I'm very happy with. It's a big improvement from my record last season. Last season I don't think I managed to get into the top 100 until fairly late on. So I'm happy with that. I'm just looking to try and improve. I don't really have a set goal of where I want to be. For instance, if I'm not in the top 100, it's not an issue. I just want to stay in Division 20 and fight the best caliber of opponents that I can. So in today's gameplay, I'm going to be using Charles Oliveira, who I've been using a lot lately. And I've been trying to strike a lot more with him, rather than force it to the ground, because obviously with Charles Oliveira, his main strength is going to be his ground game, obviously phenomenal jiu-jitsu and submissions. His wrestling is very good also. So most fighters expect that you're going to go to ground and they're constantly denying low. And my opponent here is using a Dustin Poirier, he's Division 19 and has got 2 wins over me. So I knew this was going to be a very good fight. And obviously coming into this, I've got to be very careful knowing that Dustin Poirier is a very, very, very well-rounded fighter. Easily top 3 in this division. I mean, boxing wise, he's phenomenal. Probably the best or second best boxer in the division, and he's got a lot of power in the hands. So I've got to be careful entering in exchanges with Dustin, especially boxing ones. Kickboxing, I'll feel a bit more comfortable if I keep him at kickboxing range, and I'm going to look to punish him if he does enter the pocket. A big factor here is going to be how I use my distance management and how I handle pressure, because as you can see now, my opponent's pressuring me a lot with Dustin. So how I deal with this pressure is going to be a telltale sign of how the fight's going to go on. And one thing that's worth noting is obviously this fight is a 5-round fight, so I'm not looking to expend too much energy within this round. I'm just looking to figure out patterns and formulate a game plan on how to beat my opponent in the later rounds. So starting off in this fight, obviously you can see my opponent's pressuring me a lot, and we managed to get a stun early from a big overhand right from Charles Oliveira. And my opponent's being very, very aggressive, and I'm trying to manage the range well. I know that if I take this fight to the ground, I'm going to have the upper hand, obviously, because Charles Oliveira's ground game is phenomenal. But we can't disrespect how good Dustin's ground game is as well. Dustin's got very good jiu-jitsu as well. So it's not going to be a walk in the park if I eventually get this fight onto the ground. And right here, as you can see, I'm not trying to force a takedown. I'm only going to go for a takedown if I'm feeling pressured or if the opportunity presents itself. For instance, if my opponent's pressed up against the cage, I'll probably clinch him, push him to the cage, and then look to take his back. So I'm going to look for the safest way possible to get a takedown, because I do not want to lose stamina. And also I don't want to get hit with an uppercut shooting for a single or a double leg. And there's just under 2 minutes left of this round right now. As you can see, I clinch my opponent, then flip him, push him against the cage. I try to take the back here to take him to the ground. It didn't work, so I just disengaged. And I'm trying to control the centre of the octagon a bit more, but my opponent's doing a good job of pressuring me. And obviously with Dustin, this is exactly how you want to fight. You want to pressure me. But my head movement right now is getting me out of the way of some of the bigger strikes my opponent's throwing. And I'm starting to throw the leg kicks as well. As you see, I'm just being patient. Try not to get hit with anything too powerful as I get another stun here. We go for the fancy head kick. We then clinch because my opponent's against the fence. And this time we do manage to get my opponent's back. And that's what you're going to want to do with Charles Oliveira. I wouldn't recommend shooting takedowns in the middle of the octagon, giving your opponent enough time to sprawl them, deny them, because if you get denied in this game, obviously you can get punished for it. Whereas if your opponent's against the cage and you clinch, take them there and look to take their back, it's a much safer option of getting your opponent to the ground, I believe, and it's better off for your stamina also. So the round's finished there, and it was a very good round for me. Obviously 2 stuns. I picked up on certain patterns that I needed to, and I implemented my game plan very well, especially with a takedown, putting my opponent against the clinch. So coming into round 2, I'm expecting my opponent to be a lot more aggressive. Obviously Dustin's got a lot of power, I've got to be careful with these boxing exchanges because it only takes one strike and that can change the whole fight. And as we know, if Dustin hits you once and cracks you, it's only a matter of time before he hits you again, and if the damage builds up, it's not going to take much to put me out of there. And I don't want to be in a position where, like I said, I have to be forced to shoot a takedown because it'll become easier for my opponent to deny. So, as you can see, right now I'm doing a good job of moving my head to miss the power punches. I'm swaying back to avoid the uppercut. And my opponent's doing a good job of keeping me in a boxing range, which is ideal for my opponent, of course. It's only the second round, but I can feel that this is how the fight's going to be. And as my opponent's pressing, we managed to get a knockdown, take my opponent towards the cage, and then drag my opponent down, turn, and we end up right into side control. So this is exactly what I mean when you don't want to force a takedown, you just want to let the takedown come to you. I mixed it up from the first round. Instead of just taking my opponent's back, I flicked the analog to the left or right, I believe, and it done the turning takedown. We went for a Kimura transition into an armbar here, which looking back on it probably wasn't the smartest thing to have done because my opponent still has a good stamina level, and Dustin does a very good job of getting out here. And obviously one thing is Poirier's got very good submission defense because he has a good jiu-jitsu himself, and by doing that I've now lost the position on the ground, which I was comfortable with. So we did get the stun and then the takedown, so this round's gone well up until now. I'm expecting for my opponent to come out a lot more aggressively just because of that. And as you can see, we go to throw straight there. My opponent hits me with an uppercut and does a great job. Hits me with an uppercut again, and this time he gets the knockdown. So that's the round now in his favour, and he's now doing damage to my chin health. And we get the chain takedown here, and that was good timing because I knew my opponent's stamina wasn't in the best position. So we managed to get the chain takedown, and my opponent has low stamina. And although we got the takedown, that's obviously alleviated some pressure. I wasn't happy with the fact that I was forced to take that takedown because my opponent was doing a good job in dominating me on the feet. Because like I said, that's not in the position you want to be in. You don't have to be forced to shoot a takedown because that's just going to lead to trouble down the line. And with 30 seconds roughly left to go, I'm on the back foot here, and this is definitely my opponent's round because of the knockdown. But one thing to notice is my opponent's stamina isn't in the best position, and if his stamina's not in a good place now, he's not going to be in a good place in the late rounds. So all I've got to do is look to expose that. And with Charles Oliveira, you've got the ability to, if your opponent has low stamina, if you get them onto the ground, it's going to be very difficult for them to get out of these submissions. And going into the next round, I've got to be very careful because obviously my chin health isn't going to be in the best position, and it's not going to take much for Dustin to get a knockdown, a stun. So I need to be very careful. As you can see, I'm still willing to exchange, which probably isn't the best thing to do. And looking back at this, I should have implemented more body work, but I was worried that whilst going for a hook to the body and uppercut to the body, that my opponent would then manage to get an uppercut, and that will result in a knockdown. As you can see, I go for the turning takedown there. My opponent does a brilliant job of denying it, and his stamina is not in a good position as I hit him to the body there. So now I'm trying to slowly but surely work in these body punches. And right now I'm debating in my head what I should do. What's the best thing I can do here? Do I want to take this fight into deep waters and take it to the 4th and 5th? And if so, what's going to put me in the most advantageous position to win the fight? And that's why I'm starting to work the body, because I know his stamina's already low. But the one problem is my chin health's now not in a great position as he catches me with a beautiful hook as I sway. And that was a big knockdown for him. And this is the problem with now trying to fight tactically, is that my chin health's in such a dire position that it's not going to take much for my opponent to get a drop. And if I fight a tactically sound fight and he just gets that one knockdown, that knockdown's going to win in the round. And he does the right thing in getting up, and then he jumps on top. He does it again, which is it's a bit cheesy, but it is what it is. And as you can see, I'm being a bit more careful now. I'm really looking for him to exchange first, or me to force an exchange out of him to counter. I still believe I've got what it takes to be able to get a knockdown myself in this round. And although my opponent's having a lot of success right now in the boxing exchanges. I'm still feeling comfortable boxing. Looking back, I know I need to do a lot more work with the body punches, body uppercuts. But like I said, where my chin health's in the position it's in, it's not ideal to be going low to the body. They get hit with an uppercut and then get knocked out. I believe I went for the clinch there because my opponent's against the fence, but I was just out of range. And as you see, as I try pressuring him, he gets another knockdown. Luckily, he doesn't get on top, because if he did, he'd probably get the finish. Right now, I'm going head first and he gets another knockdown. So I'm being very aggressive still. But I'm trying to chase my opponent down to make a mistake for me to capitalise on. As you can see, my opponent's got no stamina. His gas tank's pretty much empty. And with 40 seconds to go, I'm going to look to push my opponent, see if I can get a knockdown. Just to show him that I can do that. And as you can see, I'm now controlling the centre of the octagon. I'm winning most of these exchanges here towards the final 20 seconds. And I'm really pushing my opponent as we get the stun. Then we hit him with a beautiful elbow, which manages to knock out my opponent. And that just goes to show you, even though that I had to deal with the big adversity where my opponent was knocking me down constantly in this round, I still had the confidence in the fact that I could chase down the finish. And where I knew my opponent's stamina wasn't in the most ideal position, I knew that if he got rocked, and as you can see he was going for an uppercut there, if he got rocked and I could sneak in a punch, I still had the ability to get a knockout. And that's the thing with Charles Oliveira now. He's got this ability to just, his hands, his elbows, his knees, his Muay Thai, his striking overall is just so much better. So you do have the option to stand with guys that are elite like Dustin now. And that's the main difference now with Charles Oliveira's game, is that you can compete on the feet with a lot of the top fighters in the lightweight division and featherweight division also. So these are the fight stats. As you can see, we was winning on the scorecards. So that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.